suicide rates, which is obviously horrible on its own.
Right.
But he pointed it out in the context of what we call the era of abundance,
Yeah.
Which is interesting, right? Because on the surface, it feels like those two things shouldn't really go together.
Yeah, it's a real head scratcher, isn't it? Like you'd think with all the advancements and progress we've made, things would be, well, better?
Exactly. Like when we talk about this era of abundance, we're talking about all this access that young people have today, right?
Yeah.
Like unprecedented access to technology, education, healthcare, at least in many parts of the world.
Right.
And, just generally a level of material wealth that previous generations could only dream of.
For sure.
So it just seems counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It really does. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack in this deep dive today.
Okay, so let's jump in. So the first thing that Dr. King points out is this, simultaneous mental health crisis and the stigma that still exists around it.
Yeah, it's a two-sided coin for sure.
On one hand, we're seeing much more awareness about mental health among young people.
Absolutely. They're much more likely to actually recognize when they're struggling, which is a huge step in the right direction.
Definitely.
But here's the catch, and it's a big one, that awareness isn't always matched by actions to help,
Yeah, like affordable, effective mental health care.
Exactly. It's almost like they're being given the vocabulary to describe their pain, but not the tools to manage it.
Right, and then you layer on top of that the stigma that still exists.
Oh, absolutely.
Dr. King really emphasizes this. Even though we talk about mental health more openly these days in a lot of communities, there's still this huge fear of judgment.
Oh, for sure. Especially for young people who are already navigating so many complex social dynamics.
It's like they're trapped, right?
Yeah, like they know they need help, but they're terrified to ask for it because of what other people might think.
Totally. Okay, let's move on to something that feels very specific to this generation. Social media.
Right, and Dr. King brings up a really interesting point about how social media contributes to this culture of comparison.
Which feels inescapable these days.
It really does, doesn't it? Social media platforms are basically designed to showcase the best versions of ourselves,
Like highlight reels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone's sharing their successes, their perfect vacations, their picture-perfect relationships.
It's curated, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And that can really warp your perception of reality, especially for young people who are still figuring out who they are and where they fit in.
And Dr. King says this can lead to young people feeling like they're constantly falling short.
Yeah, like they're not successful enough, not attractive enough, not happy enough.
Right, because they're constantly comparing themselves to these often unrealistic portrayals of other people's lives.
And it's not just about feeling inadequate. It's also about cyberbullying, which Dr. King talks about as a major issue.
Which is just so insidious and relentless, isn't it?
It is. It used to be that bullying was confined to the schoolyard.
Right, but now it can follow you everywhere you go.
Exactly. And that kind of constant negativity can be incredibly damaging to a young person's self-esteem.
It really makes you think about the responsibility these social media platforms have to protect their users, especially young people.
No question. It's a huge challenge, finding that balance between freedom of expression and protecting people from harm.
Okay, let's talk about pressure.
Pressure.
To succeed. Dr. King points to the immense pressure young people face today to achieve academically, professionally, in every aspect of their lives, it seems.
It's like the expectations are just sky high from such a young age, right?
Yeah, they're told they have to get into the best schools, get perfect grades, land those competitive internships.
And the fear of failure can be paralyzing.
Absolutely. It's like this constant sense of, what if I don't measure up?
And the crazy thing is, as Dr. King points out, a lot of this pressure comes from within, too,
They internalize these expectations and put even more pressure on themselves.
Right. It's like they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders before they've even had a chance to really experience it.
And here's the irony, right? Even in this era of abundance, Dr. King highlights the very real economic anxieties that young people are dealing with.
Yeah, it's like this disconnect between the perception of abundance and the actual reality for a lot of young people.
Like you have things like job insecurity, student loan debt, the rising cost of living.
And those are huge burdens to carry, especially when you're just starting out in life.
It creates the sense that maybe the future isn't as bright as they've been told it should be.
Right, and that can really contribute to feelings of hopelessness and despair.
Okay, this next point from Dr. King is really fascinating to me. This idea of digital connection versus actual isolation.
Yeah, it's a paradox, isn't it?
We're more connected than ever before, but so many people, especially young people, feel incredibly lonely.
And Dr. King points out that these online connections, they don't always translate into the kind of deep, meaningful relationships that we all need to thrive.
It's like the difference between having 1,000 Facebook friends and having a few close friends you can really count on.
That's a great way to put it. And he also talks about how changes in family structures can contribute to this sense of isolation.
Like with higher divorce rates, parents working longer hours.
Yeah, it can mean less time for those quality interactions and emotional support that young people really need from their families.
It's like they're missing that safety net, that foundation.
Right, and that can leave them feeling really vulnerable and alone.
Now, this is something that feels particularly heavy. The rise of global and existential anxiety.
I think that's something that really sets this generation apart, wouldn't you say?
I think so, yeah. They're growing up with this constant awareness of climate change, political instability, all these huge problems that feel almost impossible to solve.
It's like they're inheriting a world that's already on fire, and they're the ones who are expected to put it out.
And on top of that, Dr. King talks about the struggle to find meaning and purpose in a world that often feels very materialistic and superficial.
Yeah, it's like in this era of abundance where so many basic needs are met, the bigger questions about why we're here and what our lives mean can become even more overwhelming.
Because those are tough questions to answer. And if you don't have the right support or guidance, it can be really, really difficult.
Absolutely. And that can lead to feelings of emptiness, like you're just drifting through life without a real sense of purpose.
Sadly, as Dr. King points out, some young people turn to substance abuse as a way to cope with all this pressure and anxiety.
Which, of course, is a really dangerous path to go down.
It's like they're trying to self-medicate, but it only makes things worse in the long run.
Exactly. Substance abuse can exacerbate mental health problems, increase impulsivity, and sadly, it also increases the risk of suicide.
It's a heartbreaking cycle.
It really is. And we can't forget about the impact of trauma, which Dr. King highlights as a major factor in many cases of youth suicide.
Right, things like abuse, neglect, loss.
These are incredibly difficult experiences that can have a lasting impact on a person's mental and emotional well-being, especially if they happen during childhood.
Trauma can make it so much harder to cope with stress, to regulate emotions, to trust people.
And those are all essential skills for navigating life's challenges.
Building on that, Dr. King talks about how some young people just haven't developed those essential coping skills.
Yeah, and he suggests that sometimes, even with the best intentions, parenting styles can inadvertently play a role in this.
Like overprotective parenting, the helicopter parent phenomenon.
Right. It might seem counterintuitive, but by shielding kids from every challenge and disappointment, we might actually be preventing them from developing the resilience and problem-solving skills they need to thrive.
So by trying to protect them, we're actually making them more vulnerable in the long run.
Exactly. It's like they're being sent out into the world without the proper tools or training.
And it all comes back to this central idea that Dr. King is highlighting, the disconnect between abundance and true well-being.
It's a really important point. Just because we have more stuff, more access to things, it doesn't automatically translate into happiness or fulfillment.
Right, and there's actually research to back this up, right?
For sure. The hedonic treadmill is a perfect example. It basically says that we adapt to positive changes in our lives pretty quickly.
So that initial boost of happiness from getting a new phone or a bigger house, it fades pretty fast.
Exactly. And then we need even more to get that same feeling again.
It's a never-ending cycle.
It can be. And in some ways, Dr. King argues, this abundance can actually make us more unhappy.
Like how?
Well, think about the overwhelming number of choices we have today.
Oh yeah, everything from what to eat for breakfast to what career to pursue.
And all that choice can actually lead to anxiety and decision fatigue.
It's like analysis paralysis.
Exactly. And then there's the fact that abundance can also make inequality more visible.
Like how so?
Well, in a world where everyone is showcasing their wealth and success online, it can be really hard to feel content with what you have.
Especially if you're struggling or facing financial hardship.
Right. It's like you're surrounded by abundance, but it feels completely out of reach.
So it's almost like a double-edged sword.
It can be.
So given all these interconnected factors that Dr. King lays out, are there any solutions, or at least some things we can start doing to address this problem?
Well, Dr. King does offer some potential areas for intervention, which is encouraging.
Okay, so what are some of the key takeaways?
Well, I think the most important one is the need for greater access to affordable mental health care.
Makes sense.
This means more investment in mental health services, more school counselors, more therapists, more crisis hotlines.
So basically, just making help more available to those who need it.
Exactly. And then there's education and awareness, both for young people and for the adults in their lives.
So parents, teachers, community leaders.
Right. We need to equip everyone with a better understanding of mental health, how to recognize the warning signs, how to support someone who's struggling.
And to reduce that stigma so people feel more comfortable seeking help in the first place.
Absolutely. Dr. King also emphasizes the importance of fostering strong connections and a sense of community.
Because we're social creatures, right?
Right.
We need those supportive relationships to thrive.
Exactly. And we need to find ways to counteract the loneliness and isolation that so many young people are experiencing.
So things like encouraging face-to-face interactions, building stronger communities, creating safe spaces where young people can connect and support each other.
And we can't forget about the role of social media in all of this.
What can we do about that?
Well, Dr. King suggests that we need to think critically about how to regulate these platforms to make them safer and healthier for young people.
So things like addressing cyberbullying, promoting responsible use, maybe even limiting screen time.
It's a complex issue, but it's definitely something we need to grapple with.
And then finally, there are those larger systemic issues that need to be addressed.
The big ones, like economic inequality and climate change.
Because those problems create so much stress and anxiety, not just for young people, but for all of us.
And they can make it feel like the future is bleak and hopeless.
So addressing those root causes is essential if we want to create a world where young people can thrive.
Absolutely. It's about creating a more just, equitable, and sustainable world for everyone.
So I think what Dr. King's post really highlights is that this issue of youth suicide is much more complex than it might appear on the surface.
It's not just about abundance or the lack of it. It's about all these interconnected social, psychological, and economic factors.
It's about creating a world where young people feel supported, valued, and empowered.
Exactly. It's about giving them the tools and the resources they need to navigate the challenges of life and to build a brighter future for themselves and for all of us.
So for you, the listener, I hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought.
Me too.
It's a challenging topic, but it's one that we all need to be talking about.
I agree. The more we understand the complexities of this issue, the better equipped we'll be to find solutions.
So take some time to reflect on what you've heard today.
And think about what you can do in your own life and in your community to support young people and create a world where they can truly thrive.
Because their well-being is all of our responsibility.
And remember, this deep dive was based on a post by Dr. Raja King, published on April 2nd, 2025, in the Journal of Islamic Psychology and Islamic Philosophy, which Dr. King edits.
It's a thought-provoking piece, and I encourage you to check it out if you want to learn more.
It's definitely worth a read.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Looking